scary stories.
Before we start, please like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. Your support brings me closer to my dream, a home for my mother. Thank you. I didn't know then that accepting it would mean signing away pieces of myself. That the paper I held wasn't a message. It was a warning. It came on a Monday. The kind of Monday that bleeds silence through the cracks in the world. I was jobless. My apartment smelled like something dead had crawled into the walls, and I'd just given up on writing for good. That's when the envelope appeared, sitting on my coffee table. I hadn't heard anyone knock. I hadn't opened the door. But there it was. Ivory parchment. My name etched in calligraphy. Rachel Monroe. Inside, an invitation. You have been selected for a weekend retreat at the Dollhouse Estate, a privately preserved historical manor hidden in the forest. All expenses paid. Transportation will be provided. Come discover what you've been missing. Check in. Friday, 4 p.m. Please bring only yourself. I laughed at first. Then I Googled it. There were no websites, no history articles, no listed properties. With that name, it didn't exist. And still, I went. We were 5 in total. The van that picked me up already had 3 passengers. A quiet guy named Miles Granger, who stared out the window like something might follow us. A woman named Jade Winters, who smiled too much for someone headed into the woods. And Liam Cross, the talkative one. Too talkative. He cracked jokes and asked inappropriate questions. The 4th joined us at the last stop. Ethan Blackwell, a man with the posture of someone who didn't trust anything, including his own shadow. None of us knew each other. None of us knew why we were here. Didn't apply for this, Ethan said as the trees thickened around the road. And I don't believe in lucky breaks. The driver didn't speak once. The forest swallowed the road behind us. The mansion appeared like it had been waiting for us. Not abandoned, not inhabited. Just patient. Its windows were long, arched, like the blank stare of a corpse. Ivy crawled up the brick like veins trying to escape. A single woman waited at the front steps. Mrs. Evangeline Thorne. She wore a long black dress and a porcelain brooch shaped like a doll's head. "Welcome, my little curiosities," she said, smiling. With thin, dry lips, I wanted to ask her what she meant. I didn't. The inside smelled like dust and dried lavender. The air had weight. Every room was dim. There were dolls everywhere, on mantels and cabinets, standing beside chairs like children mid-play. Hundreds, no 2 alike. All with glass eyes that reflected candlelight but not life. Ethan muttered, "This is a goddamn freak show." Mrs. Thorne chuckled. The house prefers to be called historic. We were each given a room. Mine had rose wallpaper, an antique mirror, and 2 identical dolls sitting on a rocking chair at the foot of the bed. I moved them to the dresser. By morning, they were back in the chair. Liam joked over breakfast. "Maybe they walk around at night, huh? Wouldn't that be cute?" Nobody laughed. That night the hallway changed. I swear it did. Jade swore her window looked out on the forest when she arrived, but now showed a brick wall. Ethan checked his door 3 times before bed. Miles kept scribbling in a notebook I never saw him put down, and I heard giggling from under the bed. By day 3, the doors didn't lead where they used to. The library now opened into a greenhouse filled with dolls on swings. The dining hall echoed with voices when no one was inside. Miles walked into the kitchen and came out of the attic, pale and shaking. "I saw myself," he whispered, but I was smiling. Ethan tried to open the front door. It didn't budge. Liam disappeared that night. His room was empty, sheets folded, doll sitting on the pillow. It wore his hoodie. On the 4th day, I found it. Hidden behind a mirror. Full replica of the mansion, carved from wood. Inside it were tiny dolls, one for each of us, posed in the rooms we had just been in, as if someone was watching us, playing with us, moving us. My doll was standing at the mirror. Then it turned. On its own. The air had changed, heavy, thick, like the walls were breathing. Jade screamed. Her doll had blinked. Ethan said we needed to break something. Anything. Mrs. Thorne calmly served us tea in the parlor. "The house remembers all of you," she said. "The house loves you. Would you like to stay forever?" It wasn't a house. It was a living thing pretending to be a house. I stopped sleeping after Liam vanished. His room was clean, undisturbed, except for the doll, the one in his hoodie. Its arms were stitched to its sides. Its eyes were wide open. Too wide. Mrs. Thorne never mentioned his absence. She served us tea the next morning with the same thin-lipped smile. "One fewer cup," she said, and chuckled. Like we were in on the joke, we weren't. The layout changed. I'm not crazy. I memorized the hallways on the first day. But now, turning left led us right. A staircase led nowhere. The attic stairs appeared behind my closet. I counted 12 steps going up. But when I looked down, there were 25 steps beneath me. Ethan tested it. Dropped a marble at the top. It never hit the floor. "Optical illusion," he said, but his voice cracked a little. Jade came to me shaking. She found a doll in her nightstand drawer. It wasn't there the day before. It had her freckles, her earrings, her hair tied up, the way she always wore it. "It's breathing," she whispered. "Rachel, I swear to God, I felt it move in my hand." I asked Ethan to look. He picked it up, turned it over. "It's just porcelain," he said. Then the doll smiled. He dropped it. It didn't break. Instead, it laughed. I cornered Miles that night. He never let go of that small leather journal. I thought it was notes. It wasn't. It was a record of everyone who had ever been here before. There were dozens of names, all handwritten. Some had dates, some were just first names. Next to each was a tiny ink sketch of a doll that matched their appearance. "Where did you get this?" I asked. He looked at me with sunken eyes. "I grew up here," he whispered. "My aunt was the previous keeper. She gave me away. But I came back." His hands trembled. I shouldn't have. On the third night, I walked into my room and found that the mirror had grown. It now took up the entire wall, and I wasn't alone in it. My reflection smiled when I wasn't. She moved when I didn't. Behind her, I saw dolls standing in a semicircle, watching. I turned. My room was empty. When I looked back, one of the dolls pressed its hand against the mirror from the other side. Ethan couldn't handle it anymore. He said we needed to leave. He built a rope from the bedsheets and tried to climb down from the second-floor balcony. He went over the edge. 2 minutes passed. Then we heard a knock at the front door. It was Ethan. Only. His eyes were wrong. Unfocused. "We're walking for hours," he said. But the house just kept changing. He had walked in circles, and he brought something back. That night, a new doll appeared in the hallway, one that looked exactly like Ethan, only its head was tilted too far to one side. Miles found a new door near the kitchen. "Never been here before," he said. Inside was a room filled with rows and rows of dolls seated in pews like a church. At the front, a pulpit. On it sat a massive book made of hair and stitched leather. I opened it. The pages were skin, and it listed every guest, including me. Rachel Monroe. Status. Becoming. I barely slept that night. The walls whispered. The dolls giggled. I sat in bed with the lamp on, but shadows still moved. Long arms pulling across the ceiling. At 3:33 a.m., The rocking chair in my room creaked slowly, back and forth, back and forth. Then a voice, soft, childlike, called from under my bed. "Rachel, it's your turn." I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I waited until morning, but morning never came. The house no longer had windows. Jade collapsed during breakfast. Her skin was cold. Her arms wouldn't move properly. Her joints had cracks, fine lines across her elbows and knees like fractured porcelain. When I helped her up, she cried. "My blood feels like syrup," she whispered. Later that day, we found her staring at herself in the mirror, unmoving. She blinked once every 5 minutes. Her voice became hollow. "I can hear the dolls talking," she said. "What are they saying?" "That I belong to her now. The house has completely changed. Doors don't open. Time doesn't move. We are pieces on a board, and someone is playing a game." In the final scene, Rachel walks into what used to be the study and finds her own reflection inside the dollhouse replica, holding a tiny version of herself and twisting off its arms. I found the diary behind the library's fireplace, bound in faded red leather, pages curled and brittle. The name scrawled inside, Evangeline Thorne. "The body resists, but the soul softens," she wrote. "Porcelain is a patient material. It waits for surrender. First comes the mimicry, then the mirroring, then the molding." She wrote about experiments, about the right guests, about dolls made of bone dust and memory. Jade's condition worsened. She couldn't bend her knees. Her skin turned pale and smooth, unnaturally perfect. Ethan tried to help her walk, but her feet clinked on the wooden floor. When I lifted her sleeve, I saw it. Cracks running from her wrist to elbow, thin like spider webs in ceramic. "She's turning," Ethan whispered. Jade didn't speak. She only stared at the mirror now, as if someone on the other side was coaching her smile. Miles found the sewing room, dozens of mannequins, each with a partially completed human-sized doll hanging from hooks. Skin stitched, mouths sewn shut, some with glass eyes pressed into real sockets. One mannequin wore Liam's shoes, another had a heartbeat. I found a pincushion beside a row of dolls, and when I touched a needle, I felt a sting in my own neck. Blood. Real blood. These weren't props. They were preserved victims, I whispered to Ethan in the hall. "We have to burn it. The dollhouse. It's watching us." From above, a doll tumbled from the ceiling, landing at my feet. It was me, again, this time, with a tiny scorched mouth and a sewn-shut throat. And then the lights blinked. We heard a voice from the walls. Mrs. Thorne's voice. "It hurts when you talk about betrayal, my darling Rachel. The house hears you. The dolls remember." Behind a false bookshelf, we found it. A circular chamber with walls made entirely of glass. On the other side, rooms we'd been in, exactly replicated. Inside each room, dolls mimicking our movements, in perfect sync. When I scratched my arm, so did my doll. When Ethan screamed at the mirror, his doll began to bleed. There were dozens of empty rooms too, waiting, hungry. A wooden plaque hung above them all. "The collection grows." We returned to the journal. New pages had appeared, fresh ink, as if someone was still writing. "Jade is almost ready. Miles will fold soon. Ethan resists. Rachel is blooming." I felt something inside me twist. I hadn't told anyone my nightmares about being stitched shut, mouth first, then chest, then soul. But now they were in ink. Ethan lost his temper. He tore pages out and burned them in the fireplace. The flames went blue, and the smoke smelled like hair. In the morning, Jade's bed was empty. In her place was a doll. It wore her necklace. Its lips were stitched with human thread. I screamed, Ethan flipped the mattress. Underneath was a message carved into the wood. Silence is perfection. We found Miles staring at the fireplace. She said I'd look beautiful if I just stopped. Thinking, he whispered. Who? I asked. He turned his head slightly. The mother of dolls, the one in the glass. We followed the red hallway to a locked door. Inside, a single throne made of broken doll parts. Walls covered in portraits of children posed with dead eyes. A glass case in the center, holding a doll taller than me. Its face was half porcelain, half flesh. Its lips moved when we entered. Welcome home. Ethan smashed the glass. The doll screamed, a real scream, from lungs, from pain. We ran. Behind us, glass shattered. We regrouped in the foyer, breathless. Jade was gone. Miles had stopped blinking. And I felt the inside of my chest start to itch, as if something beneath my skin was shifting, something cold. The house doesn't kill you. It rewrites you, one hairline fracture at a time. The breakfast table had 4 chairs now, not 5, not 6, just 4. Ethan and I stared. Miles didn't react, just chewed his food, mouth too wide, hands trembling slightly. There was a new doll on the sideboard, dressed in Jade's clothes, her locket dangling. From its neck, Mrs. Thorne ran her fingers over the doll's porcelain cheek and smiled. She listens now, she said softly. She's happy. I caught Miles in the hallway whispering to a vent. I leaned closer and heard his voice, frantic. They say I was always hollow. That's why I survived. That's why they love me. He turned suddenly, face pale, sweat drenched. You don't have to fight it, Rachel. It's worse when you fight. His skin, flaky, almost waxy around his mouth. I saw cracks forming beneath his eyelids. Later, I peeked into his room. He was sewing a doll with his own hair. I found a desk in the study with a single locked drawer. Ethan pried it open with a fire poker. Inside, a child's sketchbook. Doodles of stick figures, a family, a house, a big red X over the mother, a doll with sharp teeth. On the last page, the dolls made me forget. They live in her voice. It was signed, Miles, age 8. That night, I caught my reflection smiling again. But this time, it didn't stop. I reached for the glass. And my reflection didn't. Instead, it reached behind itself and lifted a porcelain hammer. I smashed the mirror, but behind it I found another one, and another, a tunnel of reflections. At the end of the mirror tunnel, I saw her. Me, as a doll. Winking. Ethan said we needed to destroy the dollhouse replica. That it was controlling the house, or at least reflecting it. I've seen it change. Rooms before we do, he said. It's not decoration, it's design. We found it in the basement, deeper than before. Each doll inside was tied down with red thread. There was a new doll, sitting at the top. It looked like Miles. As we watched, it blinked. That night, the house screamed. Doors opened and slammed. Dolls fell from shelves, twitching. We ran to Miles's room. Empty, bed unmade, one slipper on the floor. The mirror reflected 3 people in the room, but only 2 of us were there. His doll sat in the corner, bent, blood at its mouth. In its lap, Miles's journal. Every page had been rewritten. Silence is truth. Flesh is temporary. Porcelain remembers. I found a new doll in my room. It looked like me again, only this time it had a beating heart. I pressed my hand to its chest. Thump. Thump. And then it whispered in my own voice. You are almost ready. I tried to destroy it, threw it against the wall. It shattered into powder. but the sound didn't stop. Thump, thump, thump. Inside my own chest, Ethan and I found a hallway that hadn't existed before. At the end, a room full of glass display cases. Inside each one, a life-sized, human-shaped doll, dressed in guest clothing from different eras, all frozen in various moments, one brushing her hair, another tying shoes, one mid-scream. They weren't props. They were people, preserved, cursed, remembered. And, in the back corner, Jade's case, her hands gently folded, eyes half shut, her lips moved. I swear to God, they moved. Don't fight it. It only makes her angry. We returned to the parlor, only two of us left. The dolls had begun moving on their own, repositioning between rooms. Some now mimicked us in real time. Ethan sharpened the fire poker. Either we kill it, he said, or we become part of it. The mirror on the wall cracked slowly, forming a spiderweb fracture across our reflections. And then the dolls began to whisper one word over and over again. Rachel, Rachel, Rachel. First they steal your reflection, then your voice, then your will. It started with my fingers. I couldn't move them properly in the morning. They curled stiffly, like they'd slept wrong. But the pain wasn't muscular. It was inside, the bones. Cold. By evening, my legs dragged. My spine bent at the wrong angle when I stood. Ethan helped me into the study. I was sweating, but my skin was cool, too cool. Then came the worst part. I began to hear a voice inside my own head. Let go, be still, be beautiful. It wasn't mine. The dollhouse replica is now missing a roof. Inside, we can see the dolls moving on their own, without string or hand. Ethan finds a tiny wooden version of himself curled in the replica's hallway. Then it screams, and blood leaks. From the cracks, Ethan drops it. When he turns around, the real hallway behind him is full of dolls, all watching him. He smashes the replica. Flames burst from its base, but the real house doesn't burn. It shudders, like something deep beneath it is angry. I wake up with a sewing needle in my arm, thread tied to my wrist, leading under the bed. When I yank it free, I scream, but the thread pulls back, tugging me toward the floor. I fight it, bleed. Ethan rips open the floorboards and finds a system of veins made of string, pulsing and weaving through the entire house like arteries. The house is alive, and it's sewing us into it. We find her in the ballroom, waiting. She stands in a circle of dolls. Their heads turn in unison. I told you from the beginning, she says calmly. You were invited, not trapped. It was always your choice to stay. Let us go, Ethan demands. Mrs. Thorne tilts her head. Why? You belong here now. She lifts one hand. The dolls move. I feel my own body begin to tilt. Unbidden, I can't stop smiling. We run, but I'm slower now. My legs don't fully obey me. My left hand is completely numb. In the grand hall, the dolls are lined along the stairs, clapping slowly. The floor opens beneath us. We fall. We wake in the heart of the mansion, a cavern filled with unfinished dolls, screaming silently, mouths sewn shut. A heartbeat echoes through the walls. Thump, thump, thump. In the center, a massive porcelain heart, glowing faintly. Ethan turns to me. If I destroy it, you have to run. Don't wait. Before I can protest, he charges it with the fire poker. Dolls descend on him like insects. He screams. The sound is cut short. The heart shatters. And for the first time since we arrived, the house goes silent. I crawl from the chamber, limbs shaking, blood in my mouth. I've bitten my own tongue from the pressure in my jaw. The house is groaning, Cracking, walls splitting, dolls fall lifeless. But in the mirror near the front door, I still see my doll, standing tall. Perfect. Watching me. Its mouth begins to open. You're not done. Outside, the world looks faded, like a painting washed in rainwater. I step through the door, but something tells me I didn't escape, was released. The final line of this chapter. Behind me, the house stood silent. In front of me, a doll's shadow stretched across the grass, and it was mine. I walked away, or at least, I thought I did. But even as I stepped into the sunlight, I noticed my shadow didn't match me. It stood straighter. It tilted its head when I didn't. And when I blinked, it didn't. I made it to a nearby town. I told them what happened, about the dolls, the house, the others. They smiled politely. Said I'd been missing for 10 years. My hair had turned white. No one remembered Ethan, or Jade, or Liam. Not even Miles. No record of the dollhouse estate. The road I came from? Gone. Covered in trees. And every night, I dreamed of the house. It's breathing. It's whispering. Come home, Rachel. 3 nights after I returned, I got a package. No return address. Inside, a doll. It looked exactly like me. Its eyes moved when no one was looking. Its mouth was stitched shut. There was a note. You left a piece behind. Returned to be whole again. My limbs ached. My fingers twitched at odd angles. My voice grew hoarse. Each time I looked in the mirror, I saw porcelain beneath the skin. My reflection smiled first. Now, I wasn't sure which of us was real anymore. Then one night, I awoke standing in the middle of my living room, dressed in lace, and behind me, in the dark, stood Mrs. Thorne. I never said goodbye, dear, she whispered. I didn't pack. I didn't call anyone. I walked for miles through fog and frost until the trees opened again. And there it was. The dollhouse, waiting. Untouched, open. Inside, dolls frozen mid-motion, dust on their lashes. I walked through the grand hall. My footsteps didn't echo. At the center, on the throne of broken doll parts, sat the Rachel doll. It turned its head toward me. You're ready now. I found what was left of Ethan in the basement. His doll, shattered, eyes scorched, but holding something in its hand. A single match. Next to it, a spilled bottle of oil. I looked at the dollhouse replica, still intact. I lit the match, held it, to the threads. The house screamed, the mirrors shattered, dolls melted. Ash rained from the ceiling. I burned it all, but as I ran from the flames, the air felt thinner. My skin lighter. Outside, I collapsed. When I opened my eyes, I was back inside the house, standing in the display room, behind glass, hands folded, eyes wide. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. In front of my case, a new girl was being led by Mrs. Thorne. I think she'll fit perfectly, she said. The girl looked up, and I saw myself, reflected in the girl's eyes. I wasn't supposed to be there. Samantha Vale invited me during our second cup of break room coffee. I remember her voice. Soft, clear, the kind that always sounded like a compliment. We're heading to my family's winter cabin this weekend, she said. Me and Daniel. You should come, just to unwind. I blinked at her like she'd offered me a gold bar. We weren't friends. Not really. I was the quiet one in the office. I didn't drink. I didn't go to team outings. I didn't talk unless I had to. Most people couldn't even remember my last name. But Samantha, perfect Samantha, was smiling at me like I mattered. Sure, I said. The next morning, she emailed me the address and a packing list. I told no one. I didn't think I'd need to. Daniel picked me up. Quiet guy. Built like a runner. He barely looked at me in the rearview mirror. Samantha sat up front, humming softly. Her coat was white and buttoned all the way to her neck. I sat in the back, watching snow gather along the edges of the forest road. My hand stayed clenched the whole drive. "This is going to be fun," she said, looking at me in the mirror. Her teeth were perfect. I smiled back, but my stomach twisted. The place was old but clean. 2 floors, creaking floorboards. No, neighbors for miles. There was a fireplace, 3 bedrooms, and a single locked door Samantha said led to the old pantry. The air smelled like pine and something faintly metallic. As we unpacked, Samantha handed me a blanket. "This is your room, closest to the stairs in case you need anything." She touched my shoulder. Her hand lingered. I looked around the room. Simple. A dresser, a small mirror. No lock on the door. I told myself it was cozy. I told myself she was just being nice. That night, we drank mulled wine by the fire. Samantha talked about work. Daniel barely spoke. He just stared into the flames. I laughed when I was supposed to, but when I went to bed, I locked the door with a chair anyway. I woke up sore. Not tired. Not groggy. Sore. Like my blood had thickened in the night. There was a sharp pain on my upper arm. I rolled up my sleeve and saw it. A small, clean cut, just below the shoulder. Like a scalpel had touched me. I stared at it for a long time. Then I bandaged it and said nothing. At breakfast, Samantha made eggs and poured orange juice like nothing had happened. "You look pale," she said. "I didn't sleep well." She tilted her head. "Nightmares?" I nodded, though I didn't. "Remember dreaming?" Daniel coughed and excused himself. The 3rd day, the snow came down hard. Thick, wet flakes that covered the road in white silence. "No signal," Samantha said, checking her phone. "But don't worry, the power's good. This place is built for storms." That night, I heard footsteps outside my door. I held my breath. The floor creaked once, twice, then silence. When I opened the door the next morning, there was nothing there, but my bandage was gone, and the cut was slightly deeper. Daniel avoided eye contact. I found him in the shed behind the cabin, sharpening a hunting knife. "For food," he said, "but we brought enough supplies." He didn't answer. I saw something in the trash, bloodied, gauze, wrapped tight. Samantha said she burned her finger cooking, but I never saw a burn. That night I had a headache so intense I could barely move. Samantha brought tea. She sat beside my bed, her face half shadowed by candlelight. "I know it's hard," she whispered. "Being around people, feeling safe." She reached out and brushed my hair behind my ear. "You're doing so well." I wanted to speak. Instead, I passed out. I dreamed I was underwater. Something floated near me, white, glowing. Samantha. She reached out and pricked my finger with a needle. "You don't need all of it," she said. When I woke up, there was blood. On my palm, another cut, smaller this time. But there, I checked my body for marks. I found 4, all the same depth, all in the same place on opposite limbs. I confronted her. Samantha just smiled and said, "Claire, I think you might be unwell." Daniel didn't say a word. I began to wonder, am I losing time? Am I hurting myself, or worse? Is she taking something from me while I sleep? Breakfast was quiet. Daniel sipped his coffee like he hated the taste of everything. Samantha hummed a slow tune I didn't recognize. It was off-key, deliberate. I tried to fake normal. I wore long sleeves, though the cuts beneath burned. The one on my thigh itched with deep, hidden soreness. I hadn't touched it. I knew better. But when Samantha leaned across the table and said, "You've barely touched your eggs," I flinched. Her smile stayed. "You trust me, don't you?" That night, I stripped in front of the mirror and counted 7 wounds. 7. Some shallow, others bandaged while I slept. One looked cauterized. I gasped when I saw the name C etched faintly into my ribcage, like a carving made in secret. I didn't remember it. I pressed on it. It stung. I sat on the floor, knees pulled to my chest, and whispered, "Is this madness?" The only reply was wind against the windows. Samantha knocked on my door around midnight. "Just checking," she said. I heard a sound. "I'm fine. You're pale. Want me to sit with you?" She walked in without waiting. Her hand touched my forehead, fingers cold and careful. "You're burning up." "I'm not sick." Her voice was soft. "Maybe not your body." I caught Daniel alone the next morning. He was dragging something heavy through the snow. I followed at a distance. He didn't notice. It was a deer carcass, half gutted, but it had no blood inside, just a deflated skin bag, left in the snow like discarded laundry. He looked over his shoulder, eyes glassy, and muttered, "She doesn't like it when I watch." I stepped back, heart racing. I set up my phone camera that night. Hidden on the shelf, pointed at my bed. Couldn't sleep. Not really. Somewhere between the waking and the numb, I felt a weight on my chest, fingers brushing hair from my face, the smell of lavender. When I awoke, there was blood beneath my fingernails. The phone was dead. Battery drained. When I charged it, the video was corrupted. What remained was a single still frame, blurry, distorted. But behind me in the shot, there was a figure, leaning over, and it looked like Samantha. Her eyes weren't human. I sat by the fire and scratched the back of my hand. Something sharp protruded beneath the skin. I pressed. It moved. I dug it out, a glass sliver. Red at the tip, like a needle, like something used. I dropped it. My breathing sharpened. Samantha entered the room and looked straight at me. "I'm making tea," she said. I nodded. My voice cracked. I found Samantha's notebook left out on the couch. It wasn't a journal, it was a ledger. Names, numbers, body weights, blood types, dates. My name was listed 4 times. Beside each, a measurement: 20 ml, 1 3 cup 300 ml, 1 2 cup 195 ml, minor withdrawal 142 ml. Nightly touch. I snapped the book shut. "You're hurting me," I said. Samantha looked up from her tea, tilting her head like I was speaking another language. "What? These cuts. The blood. What are you doing?" She didn't blink. "You were wasting it." "I'm just sharing what you don't need." Daniel didn't move. He kept drinking his tea. His hand shook. Samantha leaned forward. Her smile widened. "Don't you feel closer to me now?" That night I tried to run, into the woods, into the storm. I didn't make it far. Snow swallowed my shoes. Branches scratched my face. When I turned back, I saw it. The cabin's windows glowed red. In the snow behind me, I left a trail, not footprints, drops. You don't lose your mind all at once. You bleed it out. And she collects every drop. The storm continued for days. The windows fogged with frost. The world outside turned gray and white and gone. The roads were buried. The trees disappeared behind walls of mist. Inside, it was warmer, but only where Samantha wanted it to be. She kept the fireplace lit, the tea hot. and her smile patient. I stayed in my room, wrapped in blankets, watching the doorknob, feeling the slow pulse of something inside me, shifting. I woke up to the sound of dripping, thick, slow. From the edge of the bed, the sheets were soaked. My thigh burned. Another cut. Deeper. Too deep for sleepwalking. I screamed. Daniel came in first, followed by Samantha. She said nothing, just looked at the blood and calmly fetched her sewing kit. "We can't have you leaking too much," she whispered, dabbing the wound with gauze. "Not yet." Later that day, I explored the locked hallway behind the pantry. Samantha was asleep. Daniel sat outside in the snow, smoking silently. The door creaked open into a small guest room, dusty, unused, full of moths. In the drawer, a journal. Not mine, not Samantha's. My name is Isla. If you're reading this, you're already bleeding. The pages were frantic, descriptions of cuts, missing time, and the same unbearable kindness. One entry ended with, "She said we would become one." I think I already am. I cornered Daniel while Samantha was out chopping firewood. He looked thinner, grayer. "Why don't you leave?" I asked. He blinked slowly. "She doesn't let you. Not once she picks you." "Is she hurting you?" He shook his head. "No. She's loving me. The way she knows how." And then, quietly, he added, "I used to think I was saving her. Now I'm just not sure who's saving who." My reflection looked pale. Not tired. Changed. Veins too dark. Pupils too wide. My breath fogged the mirror. But for a second, my reflection didn't mimic me. I pressed on my stomach and felt a shift, like something inside had been added, or removed. I pulled up my shirt and saw tiny puncture marks running diagonally across my ribs. A pattern. That night, she sat across from me by the fire. We didn't speak for a long time. Then she pulled out a glass vial filled with dark red liquid. "Do you know how connected we are now?" she asked. She uncorked it and drank a sip, then passed it to me. "This is what love tastes like, Claire. Give a little. Take a little." I didn't drink, but I didn't run either. I woke up in the bathtub, freezing water, blood around the rim. Samantha sat on the edge, humming, dragging a washcloth along my shoulder. "You were burning up," she said. "I had to cool you." My teeth chattered. My skin was blue. The water was red, and I didn't remember walking into it. I tried to leave. I packed my bag, found the key, but the door was frozen shut from the inside. Not with ice, with resin. Hard, yellowish sap that pulsed like veins across the handle. I heard humming behind me. Turned. Samantha stood in the hallway, holding my notebook. "I read your dreams," she said gently. "You're closer to being free than you realize." That night, I didn't sleep, but I dreamed anyway. Flashes of Samantha with blood on her lips. My own body floating above the bed. Daniel kneeling beside me, eyes blank, whispering, "She's already inside." When I awoke, the mirror was fogged, written in condensation. Mine. I no longer trust my body. I no longer trust the cuts. They don't heal. They don't hurt. They just multiply. And when I hear Samantha's voice, it comes from inside my own head now. I asked myself the question out loud, just once. Am I being drained or reshaped? And in the silence that followed, I swear I heard someone laugh. I stared at the mirror for a long time. At first, everything seemed normal. Pale skin, dark circles, the same tired girl. But then I blinked, and my reflection didn't. It stared back and smiled. Not with comfort, but with recognition. Later, I found an old Polaroid in the back of Samantha's dresser. The photo showed her sitting by the fireplace with someone else. Same coat, same eyes, same hair, but it wasn't me. Yet my name was written on the back. Claire. First winter. I hadn't been here before, had I? Daniel handed me something that night, quietly, like passing a secret in a church. A worn leather book, no title. Inside, sketches of women. Dozens of them, all with bandages, marks, cuts. And beneath every page, a name, the last one, Claire W., drawn in ink, with a halo of bleeding stars around her head. I tested the mirror again, moved my hand left. It moved right. Laughed. It didn't. The reflection began shifting on its own. The eyes drooped. The mouth peeled into a smile far too wide. I smashed it. But behind the glass was another mirror, and in it, Samantha's face. Why do you hide from what you already are? I tried not to sleep. I bound my wrists, bit my tongue to stay awake. Still, I'd blink, and hours would pass. More cuts appeared, some stitched. One night, I awoke to find Samantha's hair on my pillow. She was never in the room, but her scent lingered, her warmth remained, and something had been sewn into my sleeve. Closer. I screamed at Daniel. Why do you let her do this to me? He shook, ashen-faced. I let her do it, because she did it to me once, and I didn't die. I changed. He unbuttoned his shirt. Across his chest, dozens of thin white scars, woven like thread, looping around his ribs like vines. I don't feel pain anymore, he said. Only her. In the basement, I found them. Jars, sealed, cold, each labeled by date, volume, initial, CW, 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 at least a dozen, inside. Dark red liquid, some coagulated, some fresh. One jar pulsed faintly when I picked it up. When I dropped it, I swore I heard my own heartbeat inside it. Samantha no longer knocked. She entered whenever she liked, sat beside me, brushed my hair. She hummed lullabies, told me I was precious, delicate, almost ready. "Isn't this what you always wanted?" she asked. "To be loved completely?" I said nothing, because part of me, some dark part, agreed. On the seventh day, the mirror no longer showed me. It showed Samantha, wearing my clothes, sitting in my bed, smiling, and in the reflection, I was gone. That night, I tried to scream. No sound came. My voice was gone. Not hoarse. Taken. And when I opened my shirt, I saw something moving just beneath the skin. Thread. Writhing. Crawling toward my throat. Inside me now. She doesn't want to kill me. She wants to replace me. And I think I'm letting her. I hadn't spoken in days. Not because I didn't want to, but because something inside wouldn't let me. Every time I opened my mouth, the words felt foreign, like I was mimicking speech, not forming it. Samantha sat with me each morning, brushed my hair, fed me pieces of fruit, hummed lullabies I didn't recognize, but felt like I should. "You don't need words anymore," she whispered. "You've said enough. Now you just need to feel." Daniel left the basement door unlocked. Inside, a narrow cot with restraints, medical tools, vials, a stained towel, a mirror that didn't reflect anything at all, and in the corner, a closet filled with clothing I didn't remember owning, each labeled with tags that read, Claire number 2, Claire number 3, Claire. Winter set. How many times have I been here? I whispered to myself. From behind me, I heard her voice. As many as you needed. That night, Samantha prepared a table, candles, a bowl, a blade. She undressed me carefully like a child. Her fingers were ice, her face serene. Tonight we finish it, she said. I wanted to run. I tried, but my body moved slow, heavy, hollowed. She pricked my chest, just below the collarbone. Blood welled. Not much. She kissed it, licked her lips, then cut herself in the exact same place, blood to blood. Now we're even. Now we're open. She held the bowl between us and whispered, "Bleed with me." We lay together on the rug, side by side. She held my hand like a lover. I closed my eyes and dreamed. Her memories. Her mother, cold and distant. A girl in boarding school who disappeared. A boy who bled to death in a snowstorm, his skin pale like mine. Her voice repeating, "They leave. They all leave. Unless I keep them." I woke screaming. Samantha smiled. "You saw me," she said. Finally. I looked in the mirror. My eyes were too wide, my skin too smooth. My freckles were gone, but I remembered them. I remembered being Claire. So why did I look like her? Her, not me. Daniel finally snapped. He cornered Samantha, knife in hand. "You said we were done," he shouted. "You said she was the last." Samantha didn't even flinch. She touched his face gently. "You'll always be mine. But she needs me more now." That night, I found Daniel in the snow, staring at the sky. His wrists opened wide, smiling. I tried to leave again, but my body betrayed me. The trail I followed out of the cabin circled back on itself 3 times. I returned to the porch, and there she stood, with my voice. "Come inside," she said. "It's too cold for both of us." I followed her in. Samantha brought the last bowl. Dark liquid shimmered. "Drink," she said. I didn't want to, but my hand moved. She leaned close, kissed my forehead. "Now you'll never be alone again." The next morning she was gone. No note. No sound. The mirrors were covered. The wounds were gone, and I stood alone in the hallway wearing her robe, speaking her words. I feel better. I feel perfect. I feel like Samantha. If she took everything, why do I still feel her inside me, or worse? What if I was never Claire to begin with? I don't remember the drive home, but sometimes I still wake up in that cabin. The snow had melted when I walked away. No one stopped me. No one called out. The air outside was thick and strange, as if I hadn't stepped into the world, but into a replica of it. Trees without shadows, birds that didn't blink, the wind that whispered my name. Claire, Claire, Claire. I returned to my small apartment. At least I thought it was mine, but everything was just slightly off. The coffee mug was on the wrong shelf. My bed creaked in a tone I didn't recognize. The mirror in the hallway showed me blinking half a second too late. I tried to tell myself I was safe, that Samantha was gone. But sometimes, late at night, I hear her humming in the kitchen. I changed my number. Still, the phone rang every night at 3:33 a.m. When I answered, there was only breathing. Then whispers. My name. Her name. You wore me well. You wore me too well. I want it back. One night, I found something under my mattress. A journal. Not mine. Inside, careful handwriting. I was her before. I bled for her. She said I was special, but I was just a placeholder. Dozens of names, all crossed out, except the last, Claire Whitlow, written in red ink. I stopped trusting mirrors, because every night when I looked into them, I saw a girl behind me, bleeding, smiling, not moving with me, not blinking with me, and eventually, she started mouthing the words, "You're next." I received a letter. No return address. Inside, a burned photo of the cabin, and a note. "Burn it, or she'll come back." I returned one final time, stood in front of the cabin, lit the match, but the cabin wouldn't burn. The snow around it melted, but the wood stayed cold, damp, eternal. Samantha stood in the doorway, smiling. "You never left," she said. "You just blinked." She held out her hand. In it, a blade. The same blade she once used on both of us. "You can be you again," she whispered. "Or you can stay perfect." I took the blade. I looked at her. Then I looked in the mirror and realized there was no Claire left. I'm writing this from an apartment that doesn't feel like mine. I speak like someone else. I blink slower. I wear a robe that smells like her, and sometimes, when I walk past reflective surfaces, I see her smiling at me. Maybe I never had a self to begin with. Maybe we're all just waiting to be worn. One girl at a time, until none of us are real. They say every city has a heartbeat, but in Hollow Row the pulse skips, like a heart that's already rotting in its grave. I'd been sober for 2 days. That's what I told my editor. That's what I told myself. But as the cold crept into, my fingers and the typewriter keys stuck with old ink and guilt, I knew I needed the needle more than the truth. Then the whisper came. A girl's gone missing. Rich family. Real scandal. They're blaming the Blackwell woman again. The name made the room colder. Harriet Blackwell, the vampiress of Hollow Row. Her house was an eyesore even in a street filled with disease and decay. Leaning like it wanted to collapse, but had secrets to keep. Every window sealed with wax paper, the front door permanently nailed shut. Except now, police boots had kicked it in. I bribed a boy to let me in through the coal chute. Crawling through soot and bone-dry air, I emerged in a room that reeked of lavender, blood, and rot. It was there I saw the first one. A doll. Handmade. Its skin was stitched from fabric, but its teeth, those were real. Child-sized. I found Madame Portia Lane in a house of mirrors and moans. She smoked clove cigarettes and remembered the girl. She went in smiling. That little Whitlow girl. But no one ever smiles coming out of Harriet's. "She came out?" I asked. "No," Portia whispered. "That's the thing." The light flickered. Then nothing. When they dragged Harriet out, she was wearing a red shawl that didn't seem to touch her body, like it hovered off her skin. Her eyes were ancient. Not mad, not cruel, just patient. She looked directly at me, through me, and she smiled. They let me in after midnight. Officer Kincaid owed me a favor, or maybe he wanted me to see something. Children's. Clothes scorched around the edges. Walls with names scratched into the plaster, over and over and over again. Emily. 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 I found the basement hatch. I opened it. There were jars. So many jars. Inside, blood, hair, eyes, bones, small enough to cup in your palm. I threw up in the corner. Then I opened my notebook. That night, I didn't sleep. Not because I couldn't, but because Emily Whitlow stood at the foot of my bed. "Do you believe me?" she asked. Her voice was too deep. It came from her mouth, but echoed behind my eyes. She held out her hands. They were bone white and covered in cuts. Each time I blinked, she moved closer. By dawn, she was sitting on my chest, whispering, "She saved me. But now, I bleed forever." The city mocked me. They called Harriet a fraud, a freak, a scapegoat. But I saw things. The boy in the alley without eyes, the crying girl who vanished when I reached for her. I found Emily's shoe in the gutter, filled with ash. I injected morphine behind a statue of Saint Mercy and dreamed of Harriet's house breathing. The floorboards pulsed, the wallpaper peeled, like skin. Something was still alive down there. A letter came by Raven, no stamp, just my name. Inside was a single phrase written in dried blood. You see it now. They never wanted the truth. They wanted a body to burn. At the bottom, a lock of Emily's hair, still warm, no search warrant, no trial. But somehow, Harriet Blackwell's house became city property overnight. The Blackwell name was poison now, and no one wanted it to linger. The police gave me 1 hour to gather whatever truth I could. I came with my notebook, a broken camera, and the weight of a dead girl's breath still caught in my throat. The door opened like it had been waiting for me, like it knew my name. Every room was staged, like a funeral. Dried herbs hanging like nooses, empty bird cages swinging in silence. I followed the scent of bleach and rot to a narrow hallway, walls covered in photographs, not taken, drawn. Children's faces, smiling, then frowning, then gone. One frame had my face, bleeding from the eyes. In the master bedroom, I found a wax cylinder and a phonograph. Harriet's voice rasped from it. They called me mother, even when they died, especially when they died. The city drowns them in filth. I give them purity. I give them eternity. Her laughter twisted into shrieking violin sounds, except there was no violin in the house. I unplugged the phonograph. It kept playing. I tapped on the walls, hollow, tore through wallpaper. Inside, bags of blood, sealed like preserves, dozens of them, stacked in tight rows. One was still warm. I dropped it, and the wall began to weep. No, not the wall, the entire house. The sound of children crying filled every floorboard. I found the attic door beneath a crucifix carved upside down. The air was thinner up there. The light didn't work, but something moved. 2 little boys, pale as milk. They crawled upside down on the ceiling, smiling with mouths too full of teeth. "Are you our new friend?" they asked in unison. Ran. One followed, the other waited in the dark, whispering, "She'll come home soon." Every night now, I see them. Emily on the street, looking hollow. The Whitlow parents, clawing at my window. Children's hands dragging my sheets off the bed. Whispers in my throat when I try to scream. They don't haunt the house anymore. They haunt me. I went to the only man left who feared God more than the press, Father Calder. He told me about the ritual Harriet was rumored to perform. Blood from the young. Cut on holy days. Kept warm. Spoken to. Fed secrets. Fed to what? I asked. He didn't answer. Instead, he handed me a paper. A drawing made by a child. Of me. Surrounded by black dogs with red eyes. On my last visit to the house, it had changed. Rooms were gone. Others appeared. One hallway ended in a mirror that didn't reflect me. One door opened to reveal a room of candles, each flame whispering a child's name. And in the center, a stone crib filled with teething marks. Left a recorder behind. It returned to me in a shoebox the next morning. The tape played, "Julian, the house likes you. You'll stay, won't you?" They brought Harriet Blackwell out in shackles. though she walked like she wore a crown. Her eyes were darker now, as if she'd slept with the dead and dreamed of their secrets. The courtroom was packed. Clergy, journalists, parents holding photos of lost children. And me, seated front row, bleeding ink into a shaking notebook. When asked her name, Harriet said nothing, just smiled. The trial began with confusion. 2 key witnesses disappeared overnight. One found dead in a church pew, eyes gouged out. The other, a little boy, was gone without a trace. His room filled with muddy footprints. The prosecutor trembled. The judge cleared his throat too often. Someone had carved "Feed Me" into the bench where the jury sat. They made me testify. I told them what I saw in the house. The jars, the blood, the children's names written over and over. I didn't mention the ghosts, or the dreams, or the boy I saw crawling backward on the ceiling. As I spoke, Harriet stared into me. Her lips didn't move, but I heard her voice in my head. "Say my name again, Julian, and I'll make sure you never forget yours." Her defense lawyer was a blind man named Mr. Silas Vale. He never looked at the jury, but they leaned in when he spoke. He claimed it was all hysteria, a city looking for a witch, a woman blamed for being different. She was a midwife, he said. She healed more children than she buried. But then he pulled out a jar. One of the ones I saw in the wall. Still full. Still red. "Is this murder? Or medicine?" he whispered. That night, the courthouse caught fire. Not the whole building, just the records room. All files on Harriet. Gone. 3 guards claimed they saw a girl running through the flames. One slit his own throat. The other 2 haven't spoken since. I saw her too. Emily. She looked at me and mouthed, "Don't forget me this time." 7 said guilty. 5 said not guilty. But when they recounted, the 12th juror was not the man who had been sworn in. No one knew who he was. He left behind only a single page, folded neatly. I read it. It said, "She is not the danger. She is the door." I stopped writing. Stopped eating. I could feel her in my bones now. My dreams were no longer dreams. They were messages. Every night, Harriet sat beside me in the dark. I never hurt them, Julian. I only let them out. Out of what? Out of themselves. My hands started bleeding. The doctor said it was stress. I knew better. I was being emptied. Harriet was declared legally insane. They sent her to Belgrave Asylum, but even the nurses refused to touch her. As they carried her out, she finally spoke out loud. "You're all so afraid of me, but you're the ones who made me." The room went silent, and then she laughed. Every child reported missing that year was listed in her patient notes, dated before they vanished. I pulled every string I had, blackmailed the editor, bribed the city clerk, lied to the archbishop. And finally, I was granted access to Belgrave Asylum. The orderly told me, "You'll only get 15 minutes with her." I said, "That's all I'll need." But no one told me I'd never truly leave. Belgrave isn't a building. It's a creature made of bricks. The walls ooze, the floors groan. The patients scream like they're answering someone no one else can hear. My first steps inside, I saw a man eating pages from the Bible. Another stitched doll heads onto rats. A girl whispered tick-tock for hours until she bit her own tongue off. And down the longest corridor, Harriet waits in room 309. She looked cleaner now, calmer. Like the chaos had settled into her skin, comfortable and fed. "Julian," she said sweetly, "you came back. The house missed you." I didn't sit. I asked why she hurt those children. I didn't hurt them. I freed them from flesh. They're happier now. I asked where the bodies were. Why do you assume there were bodies? Her laughter rang like breaking glass. A sudden storm, bridge collapse. I was trapped inside Belgrave overnight. No power, no staff left. Just me, Harriet, and the others. I locked myself in an empty room, but it wasn't empty, etched in the floorboards. Julian, come home. At 2:13 a.m., I heard scratching in the vents, then a giggle. The ceiling twins from Harriet's attic dropped into the hallway like spiders. One crawled into my locked room and whispered, "You lied to her. Now she'll lie to you." He handed me a box of milk teeth. My name was carved into everyone. I followed a trail of blood and feathers to a forbidden wing. Inside, a round room, candlelit. Walls padded with flesh-colored fabric. At the center, a stone table with restraints. Dried blood everywhere. Above the altar, scribbled in red, "She fed us to the thing beneath." And then I heard it, scraping from under the floor. Like nails on bone. Files on Harriet were destroyed. But I found an older file in the back room. Patient, Tobauzo 1, Clara Belgrave. Admitted 1899. Condition: thinks she is a gate. She wrote only one note in her life. It read, "A girl with black hair and a bird's heart will open me." Harriet's hair is black. She wears a necklace made of bird bones. Before I escaped the asylum, Harriet whispered to me through the vents, "Julian, we are mirrors, you and I. You ask questions hoping for answers. I ask questions hoping for release. They won't stop with me. Something older is waking up. And it wants more than blood. It wants a name." I asked what name. She laughed. "Your name. That's what it's always wanted." Then silence, and the asylum walls began to bleed. I returned to Harriet's house. The city had sealed it, but I broke the lock. The walls smelled like dust and iron. The dolls were still there, still watching. One had my face now. I went to the basement, where I first saw the red altar. But the altar was gone. Beneath the floorboards, something waited. Old bones, older symbols, and a hole with no bottom. In the ruins of Belgrave's library, I stole a book no one had dared touch. The Black Testament of Clara Belgrave. It was bound in stitched skin, inked in dried blood. Not written, scribed. Inside were rituals, a lineage, a promise, and a prophecy. When the blood of the doubter mixes with the breath of the gate, the city shall be swallowed by its own shadow. I felt my nose bleed as I read those words. I followed clues to St. Martin's Church, long since abandoned. Beneath the altar, I found a stone staircase. The air stank of rot and wax. Down there, they waited. The red-cloaked circle. 10 figures around. A pit chanting in a dead language. In the pit, Harriet, naked, smiling, unafraid. "He came," she said. "The final offering, the one who listens." They pulled me into the light. The cult wasn't worshipping Harriet. She was their tool. They believed she carried the soul of Clara Belgrave, who centuries ago fed the city's sins to a god made of hunger. They'd been repeating the ritual every 50 years, choosing a girl, breaking her, and using her to open the gate beneath the city. Harriet wasn't the monster. She was the key. But they needed the listener to open the final seal. Me. They tied me down beside her. The high priest pulled a knife made from a child's rib. Harriet leaned close. "If you die, it begins. If I die, it ends. You decide, Julian." I closed my eyes, and Emily screamed. The ghost of the girl Harriet freed knocked over the altar flame. Chaos broke loose. Walls cracked. Rats poured in. The pit groaned, and the thing underneath began to rise. I escaped. I don't remember how. Just blood on my hands and screaming in my ears. Back above ground, the city felt different. Quiet. Like it was holding its breath. I saw people with black eyes walking calmly in crowds. A baby speaking in Latin. A dog hung upside down on a street lamp. No one noticed but me. Back in my apartment, I locked the doors, burned my clothes, hid the book. But Harriet kept appearing. In the mirror, in my dreams, in the static of the radio. "You were never a journalist," she whispered. "You were the message." I found her name carved into my chest when I woke up. The last page of the Black Testament began to fill in, by itself. The listener will speak the name. The name will rise, and the city will drown in its own reflection. Harriet is missing. The cult is gone. But something has opened. And it's waiting for the name, my name. It started in the margins of my notebooks. Random scratches, red ink curls. Soon, they formed symbols, the same glyphs from Belgrave. I tried to burn the pages. The fire spelled my name. Then Harriet's voice in my head whispered, "Say it, just once, and everything becomes clear." Therma city began to bleed. Birds fell from the sky. Children screamed in unison. A commuter train arrived empty, but with 113 bloodstains, and no one remembered the passengers. The mayor gave a speech, then bit off his own tongue. Only I remembered the truth, and I was forgetting by the hour. I broke every mirror in my apartment, but one always returned. Always showed Harriet, or something wearing her face. She told me, "This is where it always ends. You're the last gate. You were made to remember, made to speak." I begged for silence. She kissed the mirror, and the room turned inside out. The ghost of Emily appeared again. Bloody, broken, brave. She tried to stop me. Tried to scratch the name from my skin with her fingernails. But it was too late. The name had rooted in me, like teeth in bone. "You'll kill us all," she cried. I cried with her. I returned to Belgrave Asylum. No one stopped me. There were no guards. No patience, no power, no time, just the pit. The gate, the floor split. Something climbed out. It had no eyes, no skin, only mouths. Mouths that said my name, in every voice I've ever loved. And then they asked me, "What is your name, listener?" I said it, not in words, but in meaning, in blood, in breath. The asylum shattered. The sky turned black. The moon screamed. The city folded in half. Everyone remembered everything, and then forgot everything else. I walk the ruins now. I'm not Julian. I don't remember that name. I am the echo that Harriet left behind. The city is hollow. People walk like shadows. The sun hasn't risen in 3 weeks. Every radio hums the same sound. We are still here. We remember the name, and now we wait. If you find this, don't read it aloud. Don't search for her. Don't look in mirrors. Don't say my name, because I'm everywhere now. Harriet said it best. There are no monsters. Only names we never should have spoken. Now you know the name. It knows you too. Lena Hayes walked out of the doors of the Evergreen Recovery Center with a small duffel bag and a therapist's lukewarm blessing. 6 months since she last tried to take her own life. 8 months since Eric. 3 years since peace. The counselor said she was ready. That healing isn't a straight path, and you're stronger than you think. Lena didn't feel strong. She felt empty. The kind of emptiness that doesn't echo anymore. Outside, the air tasted like smoke and freedom. A silver SUV honked from across the parking lot. Morgan Reed, her best friend since college, waved excitedly from the driver's seat. A familiar warm smile. Grounding. Lena stepped inside. Morgan hugged her tight. "You're free," Morgan said. "Let's celebrate." "I just want to go home." Morgan shook her head. "Nope, not yet. I have something better." Lena blinked. "A festival," Morgan said, eyes sparkling. 3 days, a solstice retreat. Nature, candles, wine, 0 ex-boyfriends. Think of it as spiritual rehab. Lena hesitated. "There's a lake." That sealed it. The cabin sat deep in the woods of Black Hollow, a village too old for Google Maps and too far for cell service. Morgan picked up the rest of the group on the way. Jade Turner, a leather-jacketed thrill-seeker with tattoos and a playlist of metal, and Harper Quinn, a sunbeam in human form who believed in astrology and herbal teas. "I brought crystals," Harper announced proudly as she climbed into the back seat. Jade rolled her eyes. "Cool. I brought pepper spray." The drive took hours, winding roads surrounded by trees that got thicker, older, darker. Lena sat in silence, staring out the window, her thoughts a storm. "You okay?" Morgan asked softly. "Yeah," Lena lied. They arrived at dusk. The village looked like something out of a grim fairy tale. Timber cottages with moss-covered roofs, lanterns glowing on crooked posts, and a cold wind that smelled like earth and bones. A woman greeted them as they stepped out of the SUV. She wore a shawl stitched with symbols and eyes too ancient for her face. "Welcome," she said. "I am Elder Miriam Voss. You're just in time." "For what?" Jade asked. "The fire." Elder Voss led them through a winding trail to a massive bonfire surrounded by villagers in robes. Drums beat slowly. The flames danced like things alive. Each girl was handed a piece of parchment and a bone pen. "Write your deepest fear," Voss instructed. "The fire must know you." Lena's hands trembled. She wrote one word, Eric. She watched the paper curl and blacken in the fire, sending up sparks that whispered. The cabin was beautiful, too beautiful for a village like this. Polished wood floors, soft beds, an antique mirror in every room. That night, the girls drank wine and laughed for the first time in forever. Harper played her ukulele. Jade lit a joint. Morgan shared old college stories. Lena smiled. For a moment, she almost felt alive, until she saw something in the mirror. Just for a second. A man. Watching her. Blood dripping from his hands. She blinked. Gone. The laughter continued. The fire outside had gone cold, but the air inside felt suddenly hotter. In the middle of the night, Lena woke to whispering outside her window, a voice she hadn't heard in 8 months. "Lena," it called. "Come out." She clutched the blanket to her chest and didn't move. The voice laughed. It was Eric's laugh. The next morning, Harper looked pale and jittery. "I saw someone," she whispered. "In the lake, just standing, no face." Jade scoffed. "Bad dreams. That fire ceremony probably had peyote in it." Morgan tried to comfort everyone, brushing off the unease, but Lena noticed her hands shaking. That afternoon, they walked into the village. The people were polite, but off. Smiles too wide. Eyes that didn't blink. Murals painted in blood-red tones, depicting a woman being torn apart by shadowy figures. "No one else thinks this place is weird?" Lena asked. "It's just old," Morgan said. That night, Lena couldn't sleep. The whispering came again. She opened the curtain. Nothing. But when she turned around, the mirror showed something different. Her reflection, still staring, even though she had turned, On the third day, a young villager approached them during the market. "You need to leave," she whispered. "The fire doesn't forget." "What?" "Your fear was fed. Now it's awake. And it's hungry," Lena told the others. Jade laughed. Morgan frowned. Harper wept. They decided to pack, but the car wouldn't start, and the tires had been slashed. The villagers stood silently at the edge of the road, watching. Elder. Voss stepped forward. "You offered your fears to the forest," she said softly. "Now the forest offers you to them." The drums started again. Night fell early. The cabin lights wouldn't turn on, and Lena saw Eric standing in the hallway, smiling, with eyes full of fire. The night was absolute. Not just dark, but suffocating. The kind that pressed in from all sides, alive with whispering leaves and something deeper beneath the earth. The girls tried the cabin lights again. Nothing. No power. The generator out back had been ripped open. Wires hanging like entrails. Someone, or something, had destroyed it. Jade grabbed a flashlight and her pocket knife. "I'm not dying out here because of some redneck cult." "Stop saying that," Morgan snapped. "It's what this is." They argued until Lena screamed. A mirror on the wall showed them all asleep. Right now. Perfect stillness. 4 sleeping. Bodies. Breathing. Twitching. But they were awake. The mirror cracked. A knock at the door at midnight. 3 slow taps. A pause. Then, 2 more. Jade peeked through the peephole. No one. But there was a basket on the porch. Inside, 4 white dresses. Hand-stitched. Damp. Covered in red runes. A note attached. "Wear this, or the forest will wear your skin." They burned the dresses in the fireplace. The screams that came from the fire were not theirs. That night, Harper sleepwalked into the woods barefoot and humming. Lena followed her. The others chased after. They found Harper at the lake's edge, smiling at the black water. "Someone's in there," she whispered. "Calling my name." The next morning, Harper's legs were covered in scratches. Words, etched into her skin like carvings. "She is the vessel." Harper didn't remember anything. Jade wanted to leave on foot. Hike out. It didn't matter how far. They packed water and protein bars, wrapped Harper's legs, and set out. Within an hour, they found themselves at the same cabin, over and over. The trail looped back unnaturally. Trees shifted when they blinked. Rocks changed size. "We're trapped," Lena whispered. "Someone's messing with our heads," Morgan said. But then they heard laughter. Eric's laughter. Coming from the trees. And it wasn't just Lena who heard it this time. Jade was the first to crack. She demanded answers from Elder. Voss, storming into the village with a knife. She didn't come back. The next morning, a villager handed Lena a bundle wrapped in leather. Inside, Jade's hoodie, her hair, her knife, her voice recorder. They played the last clip. They said we opened the gate, that the offering has begun. I don't know what that means. I saw something. Her face. It's not her face anymore. God, what did they do to her? Static, then screaming, then silence. Harper stopped eating. She sat in front of the mirror for hours, tracing the glass with her fingers, whispering to herself. Sometimes the reflection moved when she didn't. She began chanting words none of them understood. Words not of this world. "I'm not scared anymore," she said. "She loves me." "Who?" Morgan asked. "The Red Woman." That night, Harper gouged her own eyes out with a spoon. "I don't want to see anymore," she sobbed. "She shows me too much." Only Lena and Morgan remained now. They locked Harper in a room and tried to board up the windows, but the wood warped. Nails melted. The forest did not want them to hide. They tried to hike again. They ended up back, at the lake, This time, there were footprints on the surface of the water. Human. Barefoot. Burning. Morgan broke. "I brought us here," she whispered. I lied. I knew what this place was. My aunt. She came here. She said it gave her peace. She said you had to give up fear to live. "You knew?" Lena choked. I thought it was a metaphor. Behind them, the trees screamed. At the cabin, Harper was gone. The door open, blood trailing to the forest. They followed it. It led to a stone altar in a grove of trees that weren't trees. They were people, skinned, rooted. On the altar lay Harper's empty dress. Her body was gone. But something else stood there, tall, naked, red as wet muscle. No skin, no eyes, just a mouth filled with teeth that smiled too wide. The red woman. She opened her arms. Lena collapsed. Morgan screamed. The forest pulsed with blood. Lena and Morgan fled the altar, stumbling through the woods. Harper was gone. Jade was gone. The forest bled beneath their feet. The trees now whispered their names. The wind was warm and foul-smelling, like breath on the back of the neck. Worse, the path behind them changed. Lena carved marks into tree trunks to track their steps. The marks bled. Hours later, they saw one of her earlier marks, moving. The tree itself was shifting position. There was no exit, no time, only a constant loop. They weren't just lost in the forest. They were inside something. Morgan stopped speaking. She walked like a puppet, eyes wide, refusing food or water. At night, Lena found her standing over her with a rock. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I didn't know I would be the one to walk you in." "What?" But Morgan wouldn't answer, just walked away. Later, Lena found symbols scratched into Morgan's arms, not self-inflicted. The skin was pulled outward, clawed from the inside, like something had written through her. Then Morgan vanished. In her place, a deer carcass hanging from the trees, its heart still beating. Lena returned to the cabin. The villagers were waiting. Not angry, not hostile, calm, loving. Elder Voss sat by the fireplace, sharpening a long blade. "You made it further than most," he said. "The others were taken quickly." "What do you want from me?" Lena demanded. "Nothing," he smiled. "You came to us. You walked willingly. You were chosen. We didn't pick you. She did." Lena screamed, charged him with a chair, but the villagers didn't flinch. They let her run, because there was nowhere to run to. She hid inside the old grain silo for shelter, sealing the door with chains. In the silence, Lena finally listened. The earth breathed, the floor moved subtly with every exhale. Beneath her, she felt the heartbeat of something buried deep, massive, awake. She slept for the first time in 2 days. In her dream, she was beneath the forest floor. Roots wrapped around her wrists. A mouth the size of the moon opened in the soil. You were never meant to leave. She woke with dirt in her mouth, and bark pressed into her skin like veins. Morgan returned the next night. At least, something wearing her skin did. She stood by the cabin door, smiling. "Lena," she whispered, "we can still go home." But her voice echoed wrong. Her limbs bent too smoothly. Her mouth opened too wide. Lena slammed the door shut, barricading herself inside. Morgan didn't knock. She waited. In the morning, the windows were all shattered, and Lena's name was carved on every wall, in blood. Eventually, Lena gave up hiding. She followed the signs, marked stones, dead birds, rusted bells, back to the grove. The altar had changed. It was no longer stone. It was made of flesh. The red woman stood atop it, swaying as though in a trance. Her face had formed eyes now, eyes that dripped black tears and never blinked. Around the altar the villagers stood in a circle, including Morgan, including Jade, including Harper. All of them. Dead, but smiling, waiting. Lena fainted. She awoke strapped to the altar, hands bound in thorny vines, blood running into the soil. The red woman loomed over her, breathing through a ribbed chest like an insect. Elder Voss stood beside them. "The offering is complete," he said. "You were the last gift." Lena screamed until her throat bled. Red woman bent low and whispered, "You feared me. Now you feed me." Lena's body convulsed. The forest roared. Trees bent. The sky pulsed red. Something was being born. Lena didn't die. She woke in the mud, soaked in blood that wasn't hers. The altar was gone. The villagers were gone. Only the red woman remained, standing in the forest clearing, unmoving, her body pulsing like a beating heart. Lena crawled backward. Her muscles tore unnaturally. Her bones creaked because her body was no longer entirely her own. The vines that had bound her left something behind. Roots. Lena tried to leave the clearing, but the forest had changed again. The trees were breathing. Their bark peeled open like lips. Whispers chased her. "Stay. Feed. Mother. More." She stumbled into a hollow tree and fell into darkness. When she stood, she was no longer in the forest, but inside it. A tunnel of flesh and rot. Walls pulsing with old blood. The air thick with screams echoing from every direction, and, in the middle, Morgan's face, merged with bark and bone, watching her with eyes that no longer blinked. "She loves you," it said. "She chose you. She wants you to carry her." Lena found a paper nailed to a tree. It was from Jade, written in blood. "If you're reading this, you've made it farther than we did. But it's not over. She's not a god. She's a prison, a hungry tomb. You have to kill the heart, burn the roots, or she'll wear you next." Lena held the letter as the tree it was nailed to cried out, weeping sticky red sap. She turned and saw Harper's corpse standing in the mist, mouth sewn, shut, fingers burned black, holding a box. Inside, a still beating, eyeless thing, her own heart. In the ruins of an old chapel, Lena found a mirror made from bones and sinew. It didn't reflect her. It reflected the thing growing beneath her skin. A writhing second spine, a third eye under her tongue, roots wrapping around her heart. She vomited up soil and teeth. She smashed the mirror, but it didn't shatter. It screamed, and she realized it wasn't a mirror, it was a window. The red woman was watching from the other side, smiling. Back in the village, the lanterns were lit again. The festival of the red harvest had begun. Lena watched from the trees. The villagers danced, screamed, bled, and burned. Children howled in delight as their skin blistered under red flames. She saw herself among them. Another Lena. Laughing, joyful, pregnant with something not human. This version turned and looked directly at her. "You said yes," the other Lena said. "Now, she's inside us. And we're inside her." Lena ran. The forest bled. Lena followed a trail of ancient bones into a forgotten cellar beneath the chapel. The air burned to breathe. On the walls, murals of the red woman eating her own. Worshippers. In the center, a pit of rotting roots writhing with stolen faces. Morgan, Jade, Harper, and more. Their mouths opened in unison and chanted, "The blood made the roots. The roots made the god. The god made the girl, And the girl must make more blood, Lena screamed. The roots reached for her. She set them on fire. They screamed like children. The smoke rose through the village. The red woman opened her mouth, not to scream, but to sing. It was a lullaby that made Lena's bones ache. Her vision turned upside down. The sky bled. The stars blinked out. The villagers collapsed, one by one, twitching like insects in glue. Lena climbed the burning tree at the village's heart. There, embedded in its trunk, she saw the truth. The Red Woman was not a god. She was a seed, a prison seed, planted in this world to grow, and now she was blooming. The fire Lena started didn't kill the Red Woman. It fed her. The roots she thought she burned had already spread beneath the village, into the forest, into Lena's veins. When she woke up, her skin was covered in ash and something else. Symbols, ancient runes, written in blood and dirt, carved into her skin from the inside. The villagers were gone, but they hadn't fled. They had been planted. Lena stumbled upon their bodies hanging upside down from trees, cocooned in vine and mud, humming. They were becoming part of the red seed. Every mirror she found, Lena smashed, because she could no longer recognize herself. Her face was changing, eyes darker, teeth longer, skin pale and veined red. She dug her fingers into her chest and pulled out a sliver of wood growing near her heart. It screamed. She realized she wasn't just being taken. She was being grown into something. The Red Woman didn't want to possess her. She wanted to be reborn through her. Lena was the womb. In a hidden chamber below the village graveyard, Lena found the journals of the town's original priest. She came from the river, red as the dying sun. We made a pact. She feeds on memory, on names. In return, she makes our crops bloom, our children strong. But she always demands a woman. Always. The final page was written in bone dust. There is no salvation, only planting and blooming. As Lena read the last line, the soil beneath her breathed. Lena tried to dig a grave to bury her heart, but the ground refused to open. Instead, it reached for her. Hands of soil, eyes made from beetles, teeth of stone. The grave was alive, hungry, and it spoke in Morgan's voice. We tried to kill it, but it only kills back. You can't bury what grows inside you. Lena ran. Behind her, the village graveyard caved in, roots bursting from below, dragging old coffins into a pulsing nest of red and black. Lena wasn't alone. She met herself in the woods, and another version, and another. Each Lena more monstrous. One covered in bark, one eyeless, one limping with no skin, all whispering the same line. You're the last seed. You'll be the first bloom. They surrounded her, held her down, and one pressed a glowing, red fruit into her mouth. Lena swallowed it before she could stop. Inside her stomach, something woke up and laughed. The sky turned crimson. The moon split in two, and the villagers returned, not as humans, but as harvesters. Their faces hollow, their bodies filled with root and flame. They gathered around Lena as she stood in the middle of the field. A throne made of bones rose behind her. The Red Woman whispered from the sky, "You were always mine." The villagers chanted her name, but Lena had forgotten it, because she wasn't Lena anymore. She was the soil, the root, the god seed. Lightning struck the tree at the center of town. It cracked open, revealing a hollow space filled with stars and screams. From the pit, the Red Woman rose, her face made of every face Lena ever knew. Jade, Morgan, Harper, her own mother, her reflection. She kissed Lena on the lips and entered her. Lena fell to her knees. Her spine broke. Her eyes burst into red flame. She rose again, no longer human. The world around her screamed. The blooming had begun. The Red Woman is no longer separate from Lena, they are one. But a fragment of Lena's mind, small, trembling, still watches from inside. She sees what the Red Woman sees, the sky cracking like glass, the land opening to swallow cities, the harvesters growing roots into every living soul. The Festival of Fear is not just a local myth. It is a global infection, seeded by ancient cults, blooming every century, each time with a different woman as vessel. This time, it is her. In the dream void, Lena meets Jade again. But Jade is not dead. She is memory, regret, the tether to what Lena once was. Jade pleads, "Don't. Let her finish. Burn the seed. Kill me if you must. End this." Lena realizes, the only way to stop the Red Woman is to destroy the root system of memory she's feeding on. But to do so means letting go of everything she loves, everything that once made her human. In the village center, the Red Woman constructs a cathedral of roots and bone. Inside it are Lena's memories, her father's voice, her first drawing, her fear of fire, the laughter of Jade and Morgan. They're displayed like relics. The villagers chant, "Feed the god, strip the seed, become the soil." Lena is strapped to a throne of nerves. The Red Woman begins the ritual, and Lena fights back. Lena reaches deep into herself, where she buried the flame from the bonfire in Outline 4. The same fire that nearly consumed her. She unleashes it. The cathedral begins to burn. Screaming roots flail. The sky turns black with ash. The Red Woman shrieks, not in pain, but in rage. "You would destroy your only purpose?" Lena's reply, "I was never yours." The entire village becomes a sinkhole of flame and screaming soil. The harvesters burn, first. Then the sky bleeds. Then time itself slows. Reality begins to unravel. Because the festival wasn't just spiritual, it was dimensional. A bridge between what is human and what came before time. Lena holds on to one last image, Jade, smiling in the sunlight. She whispers her own name, and the spell breaks. Lena wakes up in a field, alone, naked, scarred, human. The village is gone. Nothing remains but scorched earth. Her name is carved into the soil beside her. Lena Vale, seed burner, but she is not saved. Because every time she closes her eyes, she hears the Red Woman whisper, "One day, another will bloom. You burned the roots." But the ashes still remember. Lena walks into the woods. Not to flee, but to watch. Because now, she is the last guardian of the fire. The one who remembers the cost of blooming. A new group of girls arrives near a ruined festival ground, laughing and taking selfies. The camera lingers on one girl. Her reflection blinks after she turns. The soil beneath her feet twitches. The festival never ends.